Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about this UFC 257 press conference featuring Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Also on the podium is Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler. Now, my thoughts on this press conference is, my initial thoughts were how weird it was to see Conor McGregor act the way that he did. I know in the last press conference with Cowboy Cerrone, he acted in a similar fashion. It's not like we haven't seen this before. But it was just so interesting to seeing him walk up onto the podium, waving at everybody, saying thank you, hugging Dana White at the beginning, and being very gracious in the way that he acted. And then when Dustin Poirier actually came on to the stage, well, he was nice as well. He was being a nice guy, but it looked like he had his guard up throughout the whole press conference. I think Dustin Poirier was just waiting for that one moment that Conor McGregor would kind of snap. He would snap back into who he originally was. But we didn't see that. We saw a Conor McGregor who was really, I don't know, it was just weird to see him so nice. Throughout the whole press conference, I was thinking about how his career would have resembled Mike Tyson's. Now, Mike Tyson's career, after he went to jail and after he came back, well, it was going in a downward trajectory. And at one point, we saw Conor McGregor doing all this crazy stuff, partying all the time, maybe drinking too much of his proper 12 whiskey. One time he took a photo with a white tiger, just like Mike Tyson, and it reminded me how much their careers could have ran in parallel. I think that Conor McGregor has taken a note out of Mike Tyson's book from the end of his career. Now, Mike Tyson now is the type of, he's like your kind of weird uncle. He's a nice guy. He still likes to be active. He still likes to fight, but he's humble when he gets up there on the podium. And I think Conor McGregor has taken a page out of his book. They ran so similar, both of them. And I think Conor McGregor saw what his career could have been. And that's what we saw in this press conference. It's so funny because we wait for the moments that Conor McGregor throws out his iconic lines and says something so funny that everybody laughs. But we didn't get any of that. We just saw him act like normal and referring to all of the good stuff that they're doing with the foundation, giving money, all that good stuff. But then at the end of the press conference, we saw Conor McGregor take off his glasses and Dustin Poirier say that, yeah, take a better look. And then Conor McGregor said I will. And we both know what's going to happen. That little spark of energy. It's crazy to think that that gets me as amped up as when Conor McGregor was going full pedal to the metal. At one point, press conferences for Conor McGregor were just the perfect way to annihilate everybody verbally on the stage. I remember one time Conor McGregor was up there with all of the greats. It was a year press conference. They used to do it before Corona. And Conor McGregor was ripping through everybody. That's where we got that infamous line of Jeremy Stevens getting asked, "Who is this guy?" But we didn't see that for Conor McGregor. But we saw points where it fluctuated. It's funny because, like Mike Tyson, I see Conor McGregor as like a caged animal. You kind of poke at him, and then you get a real aggressive pushback. At one point in the press conference, they talked about Khabib Nurmagomedov. It seemed like something clicked in Conor's head, and all of a sudden, he was attacking Khabib. But nobody else on that podium. So with the other two gentlemen on the stage, we saw that Michael Chandler was being really aggressive in some of his interviews, saying that he's going to size people up, but he still had that demeanor of, it was like he had a calmness about him. If you haven't seen Michael Chandler fight, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you already know who Michael Chandler is. But for the people that don't know who he is, haven't seen him fight in Bellator, they're in for a real treat. They're in for a guy that's so confident in that ring and is going to be in that octagon. And the way that he's acting right now reminds me of the Michael Chandler that was in Bellator, doing all the great things. Not that he's changed, not that a lot of time has passed since then, but it's great to see Michael Chandler come in and show himself to the public. To be on a Conor McGregor press conference for millions across the world is so big for his image. It's so great to push him to the public. And for Dan Hooker, this is going to be a real test for him, because mentally he's probably thinking that, hey, this guy is not in the UFC. I don't know what he's like against the UFC caliber, but I'm going to be the person who's going to be the measuring stick for Michael Chandler. I think that's why Dan Hooker's kind of position in this is so important. Because, like everybody's been saying, he's so underrated. Dan Hooker is. And just seeing him up there casually coming up with shorts and a hoodie shows how calm he is in the moment. Like at one point, he was just yawning. He was so calm in that moment. So it's great to see both of them up there. Now, one of the BT Sports reporters, I forget his name, but they do a great podcast and they do a great show, mentioned his UFC 155 tournament where Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier would fight, and then Dan Hooker and Michael Chandler would fight. And I think they also had Justin Gaethje versus Nate Diaz in there, which would be a fun fight. And then Charles Oliveira beat Tony Ferguson. So it was a great bracket. And he mentioned it to all of the fighters. And they're all in. I think this is a great opportunity. I think this is a fun opportunity to see all of these guys fight each other. And I think it will also help in conduct Conor McGregor's season. This is the perfect way to get Conor McGregor in there and fight regularly, knowing that he has these 3 opponents ahead of him. And he's also got Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira out there. I think it's really going to get Conor McGregor involved in the sport a lot more than he was. It's funny to think too, because at one point they were talking about how Conor McGregor's only had 2 fights at 155. And you forget how little he's fought at 155 and how dominant he was in those fights. The fights that he had were spectacular. Like, I mean, the Eddie Alvarez one was just amazing on its own. The masterclass that he showed to get that second belt. And the one against Khabib, well, he showed glimpses of hope against one of the greatest of all time in this era. But everybody still believes, and he does himself, that 155 is the perfect weight division for him. And he's going to stay in that and focus on it. We haven't seen him focus on a weight division since featherweight, where he came in and dominated and got the belt. And that's where he originally fought Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, Chad Mendes, Jose Aldo. All of these killers. He had his focus. He focused on one weight division. And I think that's going to be important to get Conor McGregor to fight. I think another thing that I wanted to point out was Conor McGregor literally was telling people that, hey guys, I still want to fight. Don't kick me out. I still want to be in the sport. Conor McGregor is still interested in making those highlights that he goes after all the time. And I think he still wants to create those. He still wants to go after them. And he doesn't want to be forced out of the UFC or any MMA just because a couple of reporters and everybody is saying, hey, he should move to boxing. Hey, he should do this. I think that was really important. That gave us a reason why. He wants to create these highlights. He wants to stay in the sport. He's got all the money. He's got everything that he wants physically. But he wants to create all of those memories. That gave us his why. His why being the highlights and everything. So I think this was a great press conference. I mean, we didn't get vintage McGregor, which was, maybe it's for the best. Maybe this is the way that Conor McGregor fights his best. It's funny because against Dustin Poirier, he's like this. But if he does fight Khabib, how will he be in that press conference? Because there's going to be one for that. That's going to be the biggest fight. I mean, this fight's already at this press conference is already at like 1 million something views. in such a short amount of time. It shows you the power that this guy has. Conor McGregor also saying that the vlogs and whatever that they do, all of the social media stuff, all of the YouTube videos that the UFC is putting out with Conor McGregor's name is getting like a lot of views. It's getting a lot of traction. It shows you how powerful this guy is in convincing people to watch. Now, I think this thing's going to do some crazy numbers. I mean, I think Dustin Poirier is a perfect opponent as well. We're going to get a great, gritty fight out of these two. And then right before that, something that has to do exactly with the main event. Something that's really going to create some clarity in the division by having Hooker fight Chandler. That would be really important too, because right after that fight, you'll know maybe the next opponent for Khabib, maybe the next opponent for Conor, maybe the next opponent for Dustin Poirier. It just clears out a lot of things. And to have all of these lightweights sit in front of us virtually, or if you're there, that would be great too. But to have all of these guys sit in front in this stacked weight division shows you how powerful it is. And I think it was great. I mean, we got a lot of information out of it. We got Conor's demeanor. And then at the end, we got that little chirp back and forth from both of them. That was great too, to show that it's not just for charity, that these guys are actually going to fight. So I think it was important. It was fun to see. And it's great to have press conferences back. I don't know. I didn't see any reports yet if there was fans there, but it sounded like there was a big Irish support. And a lot of people were cheering on Conor. So it was great to talk about this. It was great to watch it. I mean, it was at a good time. So if you guys could like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification on YouTube, that'd be amazing. And if you can give 5 stars on the different podcast platforms, that'd be highly appreciated. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.